The first question, and you'll notice that some of these are multi-part questions, so please feel welcome to and comfortable to ask me if you'd like me to repeat any part or the full question. First question is, please explain your knowledge of issues and skill sets that distinguish you from others running for office, that provide you with the ability to represent the Gilbert Public School District, and how would you best use these resources to impact what needs to happen in the district? So again, let me repeat that one more time so you can catch each part. Please explain your knowledge of issues and skill sets that distinguish you from others running for office, that provide you with the ability to represent the Gilbert Public School District, and how will you best use these resources to impact what needs to happen in the district? So on this question, Charles, we'd like to invite you to go first in response.
Thank you. I've been affiliated and associated as a professional educator for 38 years. My knowledge of the issues of late are related to all of the discussion that's going on about Common Core education, about college and career readiness education, about financing education, about charter school movements and its impact on our public school system, about achievement, student growth, and preparedness for the workforce. Those are issues that highlight just some of my knowledge of the issues. There are a myriad of issues related to what we do as educators. My skill sets relate to my 31 years as an administrator and my years as a teacher in the classroom. I have a clear understanding of what it is that teachers and parents go through on a day-to-day basis to try to motivate young people to do their best and to achieve at their highest levels. I have developed a system of collaboration that was part of my doctoral dissertation on teacher and administrator collaboration. I think that has a wide impact across an entire system, and that collaborative process is something that I believe is needed as we look at the challenges that public education faces today. All of us need to collaborate and cooperate with one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Ron, we'd like to invite you to go next, please.
Thank you. Well, I've been in Gilbert, I'll make a correction, it's 21 years just this past week. And ever since I got here, I've been volunteering at different levels, different things. I was on the Gilbert Anti-Gang Task Force. We're working with lots of individuals trying to deal with that, and that was in the 90s. I was on the first Human Relations Commission we put together, and I served as its chair, and had an opportunity to work with lots of different people from diverse backgrounds. For the last 10 years, I still serve as a hearing officer for the Maricopa County Justice Courts. And when somebody comes into the courtroom, you've got two parties that are not always agreeable, otherwise they wouldn't be there. And it's my responsibility to make sure that everybody gets along. These are part of the skill sets that I can bring to the table. I've been working in state government for a good 10 years now, and dealing with large budgets. When I worked for the legislature, I was involved with the budgets for education and for corrections, among others, and so I understand how to read a budget and how to deal with that. I know how to work with folks. I was a substitute teacher in Gilbert for 4 years, and really loved and enjoyed that. It was at a time in my professional career that I had the time to do it. I was self-employed and could do that for 1 or 2 times a week, and learned a lot and got a great opportunity to meet some wonderful folks in the classrooms, the teachers around the district. So I bring a lot of background in that, and I believe with my skill set and leadership capabilities that I've dealt with for years and all the volunteer work I've done, this is another step of volunteer work.
Thank you, Ron. This time I'm going to have to ask you to complete. I thank you for using your 4 minutes for that response. Thank you. Reed, we'd like to ask you to go next.
First, thank you to everyone for being here. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I think I bring a few unique skills to the school board. First, foremost, obviously, is my love for education. I'm a parent. I've been involved with the schools. I've been involved with site committees at various schools, booster clubs, organizing fundraisers, and organizing other parents in a business collaboration partnership with some of the schools. All of that has helped and got me involved and helped me know teachers and know the issues that they face. Second thing that I think I bring is the experience of the CFO. I have a unique opportunity to act as the CFO of a for-profit business that is involved with the community, but I also have the experience of being a nonprofit CFO. And there are differences, and understanding that there are differences in running an organization that measures only by the bottom line versus an organization that measures success by non-financial matters, not to say that fiscal matters aren't the same in managing a budget. That gives me a unique experience. In those lines in my career, I have been personally responsible for budgets that are well over $300 million, that are complex with many price points, where we have to read through the budgets and understand the various issues. That gives me a unique perspective as we deal with some of the budget issues that we're currently facing. My background, primarily at Intel, included operations, finance, supply chain, and I also sit on the board of directors of organization, which gives me a unique role in or a unique view, of the role of a board. And finally, I have experience in bridge building and bringing people together, and having been able to do that gives me an opportunity to see the various issues that exist in our community and trying to bring the people together on those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. Joe, we'd like to invite you to close us on this first question.
Would you like to repeat the question?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. It is, please explain your knowledge of issues and skill sets that distinguish you from others running for office, that provide you with the ability to represent the Gilbert Public School District, and how would you best use these resources to impact what needs to happen in the district?
Thank you. First, my skill set is with children. Having raised 5 very different children, I understand that what works in the classroom for one child will not work for another, and that we have to view our children as very individual people with different strengths and different challenges. And so we have to provide a level of individualization and support to allow all children to reach their potential in education. So I think that's very important to understand that our children are unique. I've attended board meetings for 5 years prior to running for the board a year and a half ago. So I already have a history of what's happened on the board and what the issues have been. For example, full-day kindergarten, when the state was considering cut the money for full-day kindergarten, we had a discussion about whether or not to continue. I heard the community input on that. There was not one person who spoke up for half-day kindergarten. All of the parents were there to say how much they valued full-day kindergarten. And since the curriculum has changed, it definitely is a need in our community. So I have that history on the board. I know what's been going on for not just the time that I've been on the board, but for a number of years prior to the board. I've also worked with a couple of parent advocacy groups and to work with the district in making changes. So I was involved in founding and working with Gilbert Music Matters to address music education, and Gilbert Supporters of the Gifted to address gifted education, and trying to provide better education and better understanding of what our children need to have a good education. I've learned really well to collaborate with people and to listen to what other people have to say. And I understand that the board has been a difficult challenge and we haven't agreed on some issues, but I think it's important to remember that we each need to listen, to try and find common ground.
I'm going to have to ask you to stop
Okay.
there. Yep. Thank you very much. One thing I do appreciate is each of you stopping when I've asked you to stop, so thank you very much for replying with that. Thank you. Our second question is also a multi-part question, so you might want to have your pens handy. What are the school district's greatest financial needs? How do you think those needs should be addressed? In particular, how would you vote on the current M&O 10% override and bond election questions before the governing board on June 10th?
Oh, right.
So again, I'll repeat each part of that question. What are the school district's greatest financial needs? How do you think those needs should be addressed? And in particular, how would you vote on the current M&O 10% override and bond election questions before the governing board on June 10th? Would any of you like me to repeat that at this time? Okay? So, Jill, we'd like to ask you to start on this question, please.
Okay. Because I'm a board member, I can't tell you how I'm going to vote because I need to wait until I'm sitting on the dais to make that decision, and we've had that discussion. But we do have great financial needs in our district. We lost $26 million of state funding since 2009. We cut $5.6 million last year. We're cutting $7.5 million this year. Part of that, most of that is due to the loss of our override, and the other part is because we've lost about 300 students. So our financial needs are critical. And the number one need is that we need to be competitive with other districts for salaries. We need to be able to pay people what a competitive salary so that we can retain and hire the quality people that we want for our children. To address those issues, we do have new leadership coming in. We will need to look carefully at our budget, but I was very grateful for the work study on Tuesday night because a new plan has been presented where we can have a 10% override and restore all of our override funding, plus meet all of our capital needs just by retaining the taxes that we currently have. We do not have to have an increase in taxes. So what the plan is to do is the administration has suggested we go up for an override this year and let our capital outlay override expire. Our capital outlay override pays for technology, buildings, maintenance, buses, things like that. If we allow that to expire, it has a greater tax impact than bonds. And then next year, we would go out for bonds in sufficient amount to supply those capital needs. And yet for the same price that we're now paying for capital outlay override and a 6.6% override for maintenance and operations, we can actually have the full funding that our district needs. So I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think that it should be supported by the board.
Thank you, Jill. Reed, we'd like to invite you to go next on this question. Thank you. Reed, please.
Thank you. I appreciate Ms. Humpherys summarizing some of the needs. I agree with her that teacher salaries are a major issue. I would add that teacher funding in general is a major issue. First, because we don't have the budget to hire or keep the same level of teachers, we're seeing classroom sizes increase. Speaking to one teacher, we talk about average class sizes, but speaking to one teacher at the high school, she comments that she expects her class to have well over 30 students just because of the number of people interested in the class. They can't go to smaller or it'll take the average down. They've got to go to larger classrooms. So the impact is immediate. Ms. Humpherys talked about raises. We have teachers who have been in the district teaching 6, going on 7 years who have essentially had no raise, and yet brand new teachers, to attract them, are being paid higher wages than the teachers who have been here and now have 6 years of experience. That's a problem. They're not going to stay. And yet the initial investment in training and bringing in any employee up, including teachers, is in that first 1 to 2 years. We've paid for their experience, and now we're not going to benefit if they leave the district. That's a major issue to me. How would you address that? I love the creativity of the presentation of the board, or to the board this last week with the bond. I love the fact that maybe that's long-term, and we don't have to go to the voters quite as often. But I have to say, I still prefer the override, even with the risk. And the reason for that is I hate to see funds paying debt service versus paying as you go. That means we've got to sell the community. We may have to go that route, and I appreciate that, but that's one area where we disagree. How would I vote? I supported the override last time. I advocate for the override this time. I believe it should be a full 10%. I dislike property taxes as well as anybody, but that is the only way that we have to locally fund local.
Thank you, Reed. Yep, appreciate that. Thank you. Charles. Thank you, Charles. Please go ahead.
Thank you. At the risk of being redundant, I too concur with what Jill's assessment is as it relates to our financial status in the district. There is an opportunity with a creative proposal that has come before the governing board in this recent study session to do some things to supply funding to the immediate need right now. Long term, just as an aside, long term there is a need to work with those who make policy beyond the school district and beyond the school board, and that is working with legislators who are education friendly, who will come in and fund education at its appropriate levels. That's the aside. The other is the support factor for financial needs of our personnel, and that personnel relates to not just the teacher in the classroom, although that is the significant, direct, and most important process. We have a whole cadre of support staff who too have not received any financial remuneration in as many years as the teachers have not received their financial remuneration. So we need to study that whole process so that we can, one, put a credible proposal before our community and go for an override that really does impact our M&O budget line and give us the kind of credible classroom and educational opportunity that our kids deserve, and that our teachers deserve, and our staff deserve. We must continue to keep ourselves in front of the community, understanding that taxes are a fact of life, and we can mitigate some of those, but in order to pay for a quality education, unfortunately, our educational system is funded through property taxes, so it is incumbent upon us to work with those legislators, as I said before. We need to work together, collaborate, and I do support an override now and in the future.
Thank you, Charles. Hey, Ron, if you will, please close us on this question.
Thank you. Well, we all agree with the financial needs. That's, I think it's pretty evident. And, we have some serious needs. We obviously need to be competitive. The facilities need to be taken care of. Buses need to be replaced. These are all things that are very important, of course. As to the override, I think it's pretty clear that there's not going to be one. It appears quite likely that that's going to fail at least 3-2 on Tuesday. So whatever we say up here, I don't think that matters as far as what's going to happen. But before we go to that direction, we really need to get our financial house in order. Now, we're fairly well managed in this district, but the $8.3 million that we're talking about right now is about 3.5% of our total budget that we have to work with. It's not earmarked. So it's not like we can't do some things, and I think that we can concentrate on some areas that can be cut, need to be looked at, perhaps some privatization in some areas. But the last place you go is the classroom, not the first place. And I was a little disappointed when the budget was given to us a couple of Tuesdays ago, and the first thing they did is wanted to cut classrooms, cut teachers rather, and raise classroom sizes. That's the last place you go. You protect the classroom. And finally, on that whole idea, it's what I would like to see. I really don't like going back to every 2 or 3 years for an override vote. There's got to be a mechanism that we can all agree on, that we agree on some level of funding that will satisfy everything we need, and then we do that on a 15, 20, or maybe a permanent level. I think that's doable. I've talked to legal experts, and they say that is legal to do. That's something that we need to look at.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, now we'll move on to our third question. How will you build consensus and support in the community around the work of the school board? What process do you use to measure the success of the current efforts? And based on that, how would you rank these efforts to date, 1 to 10, with 10 being excellent? So again, I'll repeat that question. How will you build consensus and support in the community around the work of the school board? What process do you use to measure the success of the current efforts? And based on that, how would you rank these efforts to date, 1 to 10, with 10 being excellent? So with this one, Jill, we'd like to ask if you would go first on this, please.
Okay, thank you. It is important, it's very important that we work to get the support of the community and that we work to find consensus and ways of making decisions that will help everyone to stand behind the decision of the school board. So I think it's very important that we have an open, collaborative decision-making process. We've used that this year for our budget committee. We've had parents, administrators, and staff all involved in doing the zero-based budgeting. And we've also used it on our math textbook adoption. We've had parents and teachers and input from those people that are using the math books and whose children are going to be using the math books. That's very important to help our community understand. I think also we need to return a report. For example, I just happened to find out that when we talk about move on with when reading from 3rd grade to 4th grade, which is brand new this year, our district had only 2 students that did not pass on their Ames test. They will have tutoring this summer and they will be able to move to 4th grade. So every student in our district will be able to move on to 4th grade. There's not one held back. I think that we need to return and report that to the board so that we can understand how we spent the money in hiring reading coaches, in working with the students, and then show how we have achieved that goal. I think our processes, we've worked really hard, we have excellent processes, but I think again we need to have that kind of transparency where we talk about goals as a board, we set them forth, and then we return and we report on how we're doing.
Thank you, Jill. Ron. Ron, if you will please go next on this question.
I believe the way to first build consensus in the community is first start at the school board. Make sure that we can work together, collaborate, get along. That's something I believe I can bring to the table. That's something that I believe is one of my strong suits. And I've experienced a lot of volunteer work and in business where there are some issues that need to be resolved. Like I mentioned earlier, working on the Human Relations Commission and also working in the courts, that there are ways to work with people and listen. And when you collaborate first at the school board level, then people are going to see that. There's going to be a better feel for what's going on in our school systems. And then you can go out and start talking to teachers, you can talk to various groups, chamber, rotaries, whatever, town council, and let them know that there's a different feel here on the school board and we're going to get things done. It's really a matter of getting along. And there's a bit of a question in anybody's mind, I think, that there's not that right now. And that's unfortunate, and that's one of the reasons why we have some of the feelings of negativity in the community, and that can be changed, and we start with ourselves on the board. How to measure that, it's really just getting feedback from people. The opportunities that we have for public comment at the meetings, when we go out and talk to folks, I think you'll get a feel for it. And measuring 1 to 10 on how it's doing right now, it's going to be pretty low on the scale, but I won't give it a number. It's certainly not higher than 5.
Thank you, Ron. Charles, we'd like to invite you to go next on this one, please.
Thank you. I think one of the ways that we begin to build consensus is that we put our students at the center of the process once again, and that we allow that teaching and learning process that involves teachers, students, and parents to be the core of how we do our business. If we can come to consensus on what the elements are of a good education as a community for those young people, and with that collaborative effort from teachers and parents, we might then begin to build consensus at what would otherwise be the grassroots level, the classroom level, the school level, so that transcends then to the board level. And the board then needs to focus on that matter and try to organize around that idea of student achievement, teaching and learning, and budgeting, finance, facilities becomes a matter of organizing and systematizing how we support that student achievement and that collaboration in the classroom. We need to build consensus at that level so that our focus is back on the student. We measure the effort, I think, we measure the effort this way. We see our students leaving this community into colleges and universities, establishing businesses in the community, whether they've been in special programs or in elite programs at our schools, and become highly successful citizens. They're coming back as doctors and lawyers and mechanics and engineers and painters and businessmen, and that is a measurement of our success. How do we rank those efforts to date? How do I rank those efforts to date in terms of the collaboration and consensus at our board level? Unfortunately, it's difficult for me to rank it anywhere above a 3 on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being high.
Thank you,
I think
Joe.
there's too much
I'm
in
gonna
that.
have to ask you to stop. Thank you. Thank you very much. Will you please close us on this question?
I think you begin by listening, and listening includes listening to all parties, those you agree with and those you don't agree with, and showing respect for the various opinions. We recognize that our constituency are those that we agree with and those we disagree with. The second thing that I'd like to see us do that I think would help build consensus, we have a great strategic plan that was written a couple of years ago. I would like to see us, on every single board agenda, have an update on at least one, preferably 3 or 4, of the initiatives on that strategic plan. If we're not doing that, we're not driving to the things that we've already identified will make our schools better. And that gives us a natural measurement to the goal. We know what we've identified what we want, we've identified the goal, and we measure progress to that goal. A few things that I would like to personally do, is to create a town hall format. We do a great job of that when we're in a campaign mode. We create the meet and greets or cottage meetings. As a candidate, I'll pledge to open up the location at least once a month and to hear from the people. Again, those I agree with and those that I disagree with, and get input. The board meeting doesn't allow dialogue, but on an individual basis, you can have that dialogue. So let's meet. We can't do it as a form of the school board because of open meeting policy, but we can certainly do that individually. One area that I think the school district has improved on is communication with the tools of snap grades and so on, the emails, the updates, etc. And I have to give them credit for that. But I would like to see an improvement of the use of site committees. That's something that's legislatively mandated. Every site should have a committee, an active committee involving parents and teachers. And I would like to see them take a more active role in helping to organize and run the schools. If the parents are involved, you're going to have more consensus. And finally, I'd like to see additional community surveys. We can do those very easily with the tools available. Rating it, I grade it about a 3.
Thank you, Reed. We will now move on to our 4th question. Please describe the types of standards and rigor you would support for the school district. How do you measure the success of your recommendations? And then if you would, please be specific on your response. So I'll repeat that one more time. Please describe the types of standards and rigor you would support for the school district. And how would you measure the success of your recommendations? And if you would, please be specific on your response. On this one, Reed, we'd like to invite you to go first.
So first, let's recognize that standards are set at the state level. Our academic standards, whether we agree with them or not, are set at the state level. That standard right now is Arizona's college readiness. I know there's people who don't like that. There are people who do. I've spoken with both, and I understand the issues on both of those sides. Frankly, as a school board, our job is to focus on the curriculum and measuring our success against those standards, regardless of whether we like it. For those who want to change it, great, let's do that through the state level. Meanwhile, I'm supporting the standard as it exists. I believe if you read the standards themselves in Arizona College Readiness, there's nothing out there that concerns me. Some of the implementation of it, and that gets into the measure of not just student success, but implementation, I do have concerns about, and I've expressed those previously. Things like funding, things like local control, etc., are very concerning to me. I believe in maintaining local control of our local schools. So that's a delicate balancing act, but I have come in favor of the current standards. Measuring them, first and foremost, the standard measurement is test scores. But one of my challenges with the A-rated system, and now I'm changing from the Common Core discussion, is that essentially 94% of being an A-rated school is test scores. So we publish whether we're A-rated, we publish our test scores, we're publishing the same standards. I would like to see some additional criteria brought into rating our schools. Innovation, partnership with business, opportunities for children, for the children to have real-world experience. Those are some of the things that I'd like to measure as well.
Thank you, Reed. Charles, if you would, please go next on this one.
Standards and rigor. Common Core attempts to establish a baseline for all of our students. I think the larger premise is that we agree that all or most students have the ability to learn. And from that premise, then we move to assessment, pre-assessment. What do they know? How do they know it? Then we move to an assessment, and if there is a shortfall there, we move to some intervention. After the intervention, then we move to a final assessment, and if remediation or intervention is needed again, we move back to that level. The premise there is that we try to move all students through what I would advocate is an AP, an advanced placement or pre-advanced placement curriculum for all students, so that they have the opportunity to establish rigor in an educational format that is used nationally. That does attach itself to the Common Core. There are consistencies among those two formats, and I think that's an opportunity for our students to really stretch. The students have the opportunity to work with teachers in that intervention and remediation effort, and we measure by getting our students to the highest percentages on the final assessment. That's as specific as I can get. I think we do not, Gilbert has never been a victim of teaching to low expectations. All of our teachers try to move our students to levels of high rigor in their academic instruction. We want to continue to maintain that. We need to be able to train our teachers, assist our teachers, finance the curriculum that is needed to do that, and the ancillary material, and give our kids the opportunity to grow at high levels.
Thank you, Charles. Jill, we'd like to invite you to go next on this one, please.
Arizona College and Career Standards have really changed the way we are teaching our kids. They're gearing lessons so the kids are more engaged, they're thinking more, they're collaborating more, they're being more creative. We're bringing different subject areas together, such as social studies and science, so that kids are really thinking about things in a more global way, and not just thinking about it as in a little box, that this is science or this is social studies, that these subjects are interrelated. Most of the teachers I have talked to feel that the way that the standards are being taught and implemented are helping kids to learn rather than just giving them information. It's making them think and be more engaged. So I do support those standards. I do think it's important to have local control. I'm a little concerned that Governor Brewer and Superintendent Huppenthal have decided that we need to remove ourselves from the park board that we've been a member of in order to reliably pick an assessment, I think we need to remain on that board so that we have a say in the future standards that are coming, such as social studies and science. We've had a say at the table, and we need to remain and have a say in the standards that are coming. I do think a really good assessment will help us. It's to really know how we're doing in teaching our kids. And since I have moved children across state lines from the East Coast to Arizona, I think it would be really nice to be able to compare and see if we are educating our kids at the same level as other states. And so I think that is one aspect we really need to think about. Are we doing as good of a job in educating our kids and preparing them for a global economy as other states are? I think it's really important that we understand that kids have made a huge leap in achievement. 23 years ago when my daughter was in first grade, sorry, I'm going to stop. Ask me afterwards.
As all of you can tell, this is why it's going to be important to stay afterwards if you'd like to follow up on any of these responses. Ron, we'd like to invite you to close on this question, please.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say ditto to everything Reed said. I really agree with that. We need high expectations. I would really like to see us focus on our children, and instead of calling them students, let's call them scholars. Words mean things, and I think if we can give the idea that a scholar is somebody who comes to class and wants to learn, where if they're just a student, they just have to. This may sound simplistic, but things like that can give a scholar, a child, a better look at themselves. They can say, yes, I really do want to be here. And we do have big teachers. That's not a problem at Gilbert. So the rigor and the expectations are there. I think we can even raise it. I love the ALP system we have. I really like the idea that there's more and more of our scholars that are going this dual registration, and when they leave high school, they can have an associate degree. That is just phenomenal. I really would encourage those sorts of things, and we can, if you want to talk about those specifics, that's a specific that you can look at and compare that to what we've done in the past. And if we can encourage that, I think that'll be, you want to talk about college readiness, when our scholars graduate, they're already halfway through their bachelor degrees, and I think things like that are important. So it's, again, high expectations. Let's encourage our children to be scholars and really want to be in school, and if we can do that, then they will be college ready. But not everybody, of course, is going to college. There are other opportunities, and we have to open the doors for them as well. EVA is a great place. If you haven't had a child go to EVA, I've had 2 sons go. Excellent opportunity there as well.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, at this time what we're going to do is we're going to ask each of the candidates to come and invite them to the podium to give the 2-minute closing remarks. So give me just a moment to clean up a few items up here. For each of you, I will invite you to the podium one at a time. You'll have 2 minutes, and then you can return to the seat at the table. So for this part of the session, Jill, we'd like to invite you to go first.
When we moved to Gilbert in 2002, my daughter was in 2nd grade. There were 24 students in her class. When I visited my first school as a member of the school board, I visited a 2nd grade classroom with 29 students. Yes, our classes are getting bigger. But Gilbert Public Schools is at an important crossroad. As a community, we must ask ourselves, what kind of education do we want for our children? How will we support that? And what do we want for the future of our community? I'm confident we want a world-class education for our students that allow them to pursue their dreams, participate in democracy, provide for their families, and give back to the community. Dr. Kishimoto is coming as our permanent superintendent. I will work with her to establish a vision for education that will make Gilbert a premier district. We will set measurable goals so that we can show our progress towards increasing student achievement. We want classrooms where students are challenged by engaging in project-based learning, where teachers can give individualized instruction, and where every student receives the support they need to excel. We want our staff to feel respected and appreciated for their hard work. We want to retain highly qualified teachers and staff with competitive salaries. We want the business community to be engaged through Partners in Progress, the Gilbert Education Foundation, and specialized programs that we are giving students the skill they need to be successful. Because I fully support Gilbert Public Schools, because I have a vision for the future of our district, and because I visit schools to see the real impact of decisions, I am the person you want to continue leading our district and be an advocate for public education with the community. My training and experience will continue to benefit students and focus on them as we move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Ron, we'd like to invite you to be next, please.
First, I would like to thank the Chamber for hosting this. We really appreciate it, and to thank my fellow candidates for being here to discuss these issues. It's been enjoyable. It's a learning experience as well. I believe I've been clear on where I stand on the issues we've discussed, so I won't extend this meeting any more than necessary, except to say that Gilbert's a great place to live. Despite some of the negativity we've heard recently and some of the past as we've been through, those of you who've been around for 15 years or so, Gilbert's a great place to live. I'm proud to say I live in Gilbert. We are doing great things in Gilbert, but we can always do better. We need to do big things. Small things do not inspire. And that's what I want to do on the school board, big things. Please go to my website, it's ronbellus.org, and offer your help. I'm asking for your help. Together, we can do big things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Charles, we'd like to invite you up next, please.
Well, I too would like to extend my appreciation to the Chamber and to all of you for taking time out of your busy days to join us this evening. I've been a career professional practitioner for 38 years. I have a clear understanding of what it takes to be an educator in a school setting. I've assisted in constructing policy at the district and at the campus level, and so I have that understanding. I'm also a citizen and a taxpayer and a father, and so I understand what parents have to contend with as they look at an educational system and selecting the best one for their students. I do believe that Gilbert Public Schools can be, has been, and will be one of the best in the state of Arizona. We need to work together to make sure that that happens. We're going to create that literate society that we all want. We need to also be able to finance an educational system at an appropriate level that has a curriculum that meets the needs of our students, that has facilities that help our students also grow and learn, that is able to retain personnel and pay them a commensurate rate. Those finite finances do not go unnoticed. We need to work harder to talk to folks outside of our setting to help us in that issue. Ultimately, we all need to understand that a strong educational system is an economic engine for a community. Without that, we don't attract business. Without business, we don't establish a tax base that allows our citizens to be relieved of some of that tax burden. Please understand we are at a critical juncture. Let's make a difference together. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Reed, will you please close us on this section?
Thank you also to everybody involved and to all of the people here for taking the time to be here. It's an important discussion. I've introduced myself a little bit through this forum, but allow me to tell you a little bit more. My wife and I moved here in 1994 for graduate school. I'm married to a wonderful woman who's here. She was a certified teacher. I'm the son of college professors. I love and value education and understand the impact it has on personal life and understand the impact it has on a community as a whole. I've been involved with the schools for some time. I consider myself an educator because I've been a parent for 23 years. Maybe not a professional educator, as my children would attest. Nevertheless, I try my best. 2 of my kids have graduated from Gilbert schools, 2 more will graduate from Gilbert schools, and I'm proud of what they've accomplished. I've spent time in the classroom. One of the greatest compliments I received from a teacher is when they said, in 17 years of teaching, I've never had a father spend more time in the classroom than you have. That means a lot to me. I love to be involved with my children's education. Having said that, 17 years here, what do I want to bring to the schools? First, I want to see an increase in innovation. I love the programs that we see, for example, at Campo Verde with the biosciences, at Mesquite and Desert Ridge with the Project Lead the Way, especially the partnership between Orbital and Mesquite. That needs to expand. We need to bring business leaders and educators together to benefit our children. Second, I want to focus on our students, particularly by focusing back on our strategic plan. We've already identified the issues. If we want to change that and modify that, and I understand Dr. Kishimoto wants to make some changes, great, bring the community together, agree on that, but let's march forward with a shared vision. Third, I want to build consensus. I have a history of doing that I would love to discuss, but let's understand that consensus happens both within the community as well as by understanding community development. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each one of you for wanting the opportunity to serve on Gilbert Public Schools Governing Board. I think all of us understand the sacrifices that go into that in other areas of your life, and especially on behalf of the Gilbert Chamber of Commerce and the entire community and all of the folks that are here, we thank you for wanting to do this. So at this time, I'm going to invite each of the Governing Board member candidates from Gilbert Public Schools to go back in the back room behind the stage. And at that time, it'll take just a moment to exchange name tags, and we'll invite the candidates for Higley Unified School District to come and join us on the stage. So, if you would, please.